I know with my parents and a lot of the Asian community, your kids are your bragging point. Basic thing, right? And when one of your children suffers from a physical disability or a mental
Mm.
disability, and it is one of those like, how do we hide this? How do we downplay this? How do we
Mm.
smooth it over so it looks good for everyone else?
Welcome back to Unconventional Asians, where we dare you to be authentic. And of course, a taboo topic in Asian cultures is mental health. Today, we're going to discuss how it is like to be a caregiver if you have a loved one who has a disability or a mental illness. Today's guest, Mahendan Siva from the blog ChallengetheChallenge says,
This shouldn't be as hard as it is. Taking care of a family member should be one of those baseline things that should have already been figured out.
Dan grew up in a Sri Lankan Canadian household with an older brother who was born with a learning disability and later developed schizophrenia. Today, he's going to share with us his experience as a caregiver and the resources that he has found throughout the process. Welcome, Dan, to the show, to our Unconventional Asians channel. And we just want to talk about how we met, actually. About 2 years ago, I would say, we met in Greece, this retreat called Chautauqua for the FIRE community, financially independent, retire early. Most of the time, we really just talk about our life passions and what we want to do after we reach FI. And the projects that we came up with was to write our own blog. And hence why we're here today to talk about our passions. And I want to ask you, you have the blog called ChallengetheChallenge, and what inspired the whole concept for you?
That is a long story,
Okay,
to say
yeah.
the least.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it starts with my brother. He's my older brother. He's a year and a half older than I am, and he was
Okay,
born with a learning disability.
right.
And sort of just as I grew up alongside him, seeing the challenges he faced, the challenges I went through, both me and my parents, and
Yeah.
then just growing through that, it was a pretty tough time, even today.
Mm,
And going through all those challenges, and then feeling incredibly alone with my problems. Like none of my friends had a similar situation. I
yeah,
didn't really know anybody else, and also sort of the mindset of like this is kind of a problem you hide, not a problem that you like that's the problem. You think of it as a problem,
that's
not
right.
as a person, or as this is just like if you had blue eyes versus black, or if you were just like 6 foot versus 5 foot, like it's just who you are, not a problem. But that's how
Mm-hmm.
a lot of, I guess, people thought of it that way, right? And that's
Yeah,
I personally thought of it that way as well.
right,
And
right.
growing up, and a lot of it was just running away from it. Like I was like, it's somebody else's problem. My parents will figure it out. My parents, on the other hand, were thinking, oh, it's fine. We just need to stall out, and then when he gets old enough, he can take care of it. Like it was both of us thinking
Mm-hmm.
the other side would take care of it. And then when I got
Oh
older,
no, yeah.
coming to that realization, and then understanding, okay, now I gotta step up here as opposed to
Mm.
stepping up when I was younger. And and then when I finally got around to facing it, I realized, wow, this is really tough, and I was really alone. And that's kind of what inspired the blog, because I this shouldn't be as hard as it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where we
yeah.
are in society and with all the things we have, like
Mm-hmm.
being able to do so many crazy things, like
Yeah, yeah.
taking care of a family member should be one of those baseline things that should have already been figured out. And
So
that's
how old was he when you first found out that he has the disability?
so this is a hard one, because I was born younger than him, so I didn't
Right.
understand he had a learning disability until a few years into me. Like when I was 5 or 6, I knew
I
some
see, right.
stuff. And
Ah,
then when I got older, I started figuring out, like, not even being explained. It was like my parents just said, oh, he has an issue, you need to help him more. And that was literally
mm,
the definition I got. And for a
yeah.
long time I was like, okay, I guess I keep helping. I wasn't even understanding exactly what he had.
Right. And actually, did your parents understand
No,
what he
like
had? Mm,
it's sort of like it's one of those things where the language barrier, being an immigrant,
Yeah.
for them, a little bit of distrust of like who can help, who's willing to help, and
Yeah.
not understanding the system itself,
Right.
it really played factors into what was going on.
Mm. And so now
So
you want to help people to gather all those resources so that it makes it easier for them to seek
yeah,
for
because
help.
like if I wanted to find like okay, let's pretend it was like a video game. Like if I
Yeah.
wanted to walk through for a video game,
Right.
I like 20 websites that go in depth. I've done tons of
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah.
It's done. But like, how do you do sort of like a basic walkthrough of like, okay, here's your what is your issues, here's how you
Hmm.
define it, here's
Yeah.
the resources, here's what you
Mm.
can do, here's how you reevaluate, and just going through that step-by-step process is just
Mm.
like, why is that not available?
Mm.
Like that's really what it is. Like if you have a child or a
Yeah.
sibling or a parent, and here's the
Hmm.
thing, right? This happens to so many people. This is why it's so mind-boggling because
Yes.
when it comes to mental health or even physical health, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you like the statistic right now in Canada is 1 in 2 will
Yeah.
suffer a mental issue or a mental,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That in their lifetime.
Yeah.
It's one
That's
in
right.
two. So that
Yeah.
could be,
That's
that could
tough.
be like a whole host of different things that anybody can go through.
Yeah.
Hit by a car, you're dealing with like rehabilitation, that's one thing. There's
Yeah.
so many different things. With everyone getting affected, like you can't ask one person
Yeah.
without them saying, "Oh, I have a family member, a friend, or
Hmm.
like just 1 degree of separation." You will be able to find somebody with a physical or a mental disability that affects their life.
Yeah. Mind-boggling that common of an issue, the resources are not available, and now you're solving that
Well, to be
problem.
honest, I really didn't want to solve that problem. I kind of, but then it's weird, right? Because like I went online and I started looking through websites, and I found one website in Australia that sort of does this,
Mm.
one website in the States, one website in the UK, and then I'm realizing
Yeah.
nothing really particular to Canada. Like we have
Right.
government resources, but we don't have somebody saying like, okay, here's a walkthrough, here's like
Yeah.
things that you can work through, or oh, hey, the government changed this. Like there are programs that help so much,
Yeah.
but sometimes they're government dependent, so they'll
Mm.
finish, or something
Hmm.
will pop up and nobody will know about it.
Yeah. Right.
Like
And they
I
don't talk among each other either, right? The
no, and it's weird. I
organizations.
mean, a lot of it's all government, some of it's not for profit, but some of it is
Right.
like if I want to talk about legal resources,
Hmm.
or, because sometimes power of attorney, power of care, all of these things,
Hmm.
um, people don't know, right? Like
Right.
if I talk to a social worker, they're not going to know how to help me because I need to be the driver for that. And like a
That's
lot of
right.
people don't know what they need. It's so hard because
That's
like
right.
even for me, like they say, okay, you have a son, he's 10 years old, you're
Yeah.
working, you're 40, and
Hmm.
you find out he has a learning disability and or he's autistic. What do you do? And it's like
Right.
that is a chunk. That is a
Yeah.
big chunk just dropped on you, and you don't know where to go. And
No, it's true.
yeah, I didn't know. Most people don't know where to go with that.
And just dealing with the whole situation of all the stresses from all sides is already enough, right? Let alone not knowing what to do must be devastating.
Yeah.
I will actually talk about my own experience. For myself, I went through an eating disorder when I was younger. So, I mean, when you're in it, you don't think you have a problem. But of course, from the outside point of view, people would like to help me, but like I was totally in denial. And thankfully that was resolved. And then with my family member, not gonna say who, also developed a mental illness. And that was when I realized how difficult it was for people, at least in Canada, to find resources, because first of all, we don't know what the diagnosis is, if it was even correct, because sometimes going to one might not be enough. You need like several people's opinions because they were completely different diagnoses actually. So we were first of all confused. And then like you said, talking to the social worker, they were recommending several things, but they might not work specifically for our culture either. Because as Asians, I find that because it's such a taboo to talk about your weaknesses or things that you're not,
Oh,
right? That it's makes it even harder. Then you don't even seek help in the first place. Because it's like, oh, this is not good to talk about it. It's so let's just suck it up and we'll deal with it. But we do need help truly to properly help the person in need, and also for the caregiver, because we're the ones who need to find the resources, right? So I think the world will thank you for starting this blog and giving us clear direction.
yeah. Also on that note, the blog doesn't just focus on the individual who
Yes,
suffers from the disability, but also the caregivers as
that's
well,
right.
because like a lot of people, there's this guilt, like, oh, it's my son or my child,
Yeah,
or oh,
yeah,
my grandfather or my father,
that's
and
right.
like I need to take care of them. That is my duty as
Yes,
a son or a parent or
yeah,
a family member. And the problem with that is it it you don't have space for yourself, right?
that's right.
And there's no concept of like, oh, what do I need to succeed here?
Mhm.
And then there's growing resentment, then there's like burnout, there's
Yes,
a whole host of things that
yeah,
it's not just supporting the person who has the disability, but
that's
also
right.
supporting their support,
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
and that's also one of the aspects here that I'm trying to push onto the blog, where it's
Yeah,
just like you can't. It's got to be a holistic thing. It's also got to be sustainable,
that's
right?
right.
Like if your thing is, oh, I'm just gonna work every day, take care of my child, and then when
Yeah,
I become 65, now you're just like the child's totally dependent on you. You may pass away, or you're just burnt out. You
yeah,
can't pull anymore. What do you do? Where do you go?
right.
And that's one of the things I also want to address in the blog. Is like
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that you don't want to do. That's true. It feels really guilt ridden to say I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Oh, for
It's
sure. Oh, for
okay to
sure. I
say it,
know, I know, I know. Yeah.
right? But it's so hard to say it out loud because
Yes, yes.
that guilt, like it's on you. But like the thing is, anybody in that circumstance will feel that way. Even not consistently, but there will be a point. And what do you do then?
Mm-hmm.
And it's totally true. And it's
Yeah,
human. Like
we
nobody
are.
signed up for it, right? Like
No.
nobody says, you know what, I want an autistic child. Oh, I want to have a
No.
parent with dementia. It's like nobody
Yeah,
says
of
that's my
course.
plan.
No,
But
of course.
and then what do, right?
Yeah,
You're put in this really difficult situation. So that's
yeah.
kind of where the blog is sort of stemming from. It's sort of like it's for the caregivers as much as it is for the individual who has that sort of disability they're trying to live through or live with.
Let's actually get into finance a little bit, because that's like a huge part of it that is a problem. Because when you're taking care of somebody and when they get older and they might be able to work or not be able to work, then what do you do? Because it's like you said, is this sustainable? How do you get assistance? And depending on the severity of the situation as well, it's like sometimes that's a gray area that is very hard to recognize. If you like, if there's any guidelines at all to figure out what kind of assistance you can get. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I guess it's a multi-step, like that is quite a big problem that you've just sort
Yeah.
of. I think what would be better is to sort of break that down a bit. So
Okay.
first is, let's start there, because a lot of times people will be so overwhelmed. They'll just be like, they come to you, it's like, here's my son, here's everything, I don't know what to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, that's
It's
the
just
thing.
like, even from a social worker's point of view, it's like,
Yeah,
I don't even know where to start here.
I know.
And it's sort of like when you're so stressed you can't think straight,
That's
when you're
right.
so stressed and you don't know what to do next,
Yes.
it comes down to, okay, taking a step back and saying,
Uh-huh.
what do I need? Taking that breath and just like,
Mm,
sometimes
right.
and sometimes you won't even know what you need. And that's actually a very common thing.
That's
Like
the
for instance,
problem.
like I think of my brother and I think, okay, what does he
Yeah.
need? He needs to have a job. He needs to like do all these things. And then we kind of blow past it, like, okay, where's he gonna live? Like,
Yeah.
can't live with my parents
Mm-hmm.
24/7 for the rest of his life because he's gonna outlive my parents. So
Yeah.
it's like problems like that where
Yeah.
you don't think about, oh, what do I exactly need? So it's
Right.
a a very difficult thing, and it's a problem that needs to be revisited every so often.
Yeah.
So you have to sit down and think like, what do we need immediately? Like, okay, how do we stop the bleeding? What is the first thing that needs to get done? Sometimes that is, okay, which doctors do we need to talk with? Which therapists, psychiatrists? Okay, how do we get like some people in to do a diagnosis or an assessment? Like you were saying before, hey, we got one assessment, we weren't sure, we didn't know if that's correct. And even with certain disabilities, those change over time. Like
That's right.
Like for my brother's case, he started off with a learning disability, and then when he hit his mid-20s, he developed schizophrenia. And then that particular thing is like, oh, what we had before drastically changed from when he became an adult.
Yeah.
But what he needed, what happened, who, like, all of that changed quite drastically.
Right.
So first is keying in on what it is you need.
Yeah.
So we'll start there. So is it housing? Is it money? Is it day programs? Is it how do we help them in school? How do we help them get a job? How do we help her like interact with society? How do we help them figure out what are the resources I need to get?
That's right. Yeah.
That is a very difficult question that needs to be done multiple times. So that's one part of it. So then we'll start with the second part. It's like, okay, building a team or figuring out what do you need? Like, what is the resources you need to get your goals done? Right? So if it's something like, hey, I'm really anxious and it's preventing me from going to work, it's causing depression, then, okay, doctor, therapist, psychiatrist, maybe those are individuals you need to be seeing on a regular basis. If it's like physical disability, you need to be talking to a chiropractor or somebody else like that. And then having those, like, immediately the thing is to know what you need and then know who to talk to get that. Right? Sometimes it's a social worker. It's like, okay, I need access to housing. It's like, okay, what are the resources? So once you know what you need, then it starts with who can I ask for help? Because the truth of the matter is, I went to school for engineering and I know that really well, but I have no idea how do you teach someone with a learning disability, right? Like my parents, when I was a little kid, was like, oh, why don't you tutor your brother? And like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was like, I was younger than him, and like I'm teaching English to someone with a learning disability where there's literally trained professionals who like practice and like study for years who aren't even getting it right. And then you're just like, oh, we'll suck it up. We as a family will figure it out. It's like, how ridiculous that as a notion is, but that is kind of the go-to response for a lot of people, right? A lot of it is just, we're going to just do this on our own, right? And it's okay to say like, hey, I'm out of my depth here. I really don't know where to go. It's okay to say that. So getting that team together. And the next step is just, okay, how do we track the small progress we're doing? Because that is so hard. Like, okay, what is it the thing that we're going to be doing? Like, okay, I want him to be able to have a job. Like, I don't really care what. I just want him to try. Maybe that's realistic. Maybe it's not. I don't know. And that's okay. It's like you throw a dart there and then you say, all right, here we'll try. So what are the steps? Well, first is maybe he should do volunteer, right? Maybe you should do like a part-time volunteer. You tried that, and for me, that failed. And the truth of the matter is, that's okay.
Yes, exactly.
Then it's to revise that thing. It's like, okay, you know what? Maybe what the issue, and see why you failed. Like for him, it was like he went to a place by himself. He didn't understand what was necessary, and it's like, oh, we just didn't set him up to succeed there. He was like, he didn't have the resources, so of course he was going to fail. And that's okay. If anything, it's like failing forward, and it's okay. Like, and you realize, okay, so maybe we need something shorter term that we can have more assistance with, where there's a person, like, be it myself or a family member or a social worker or somebody who can sort of guide him for the first little bit until he gets comfortable.
Oh,
right? That's the thing.
So great that you point that out. Yeah, because we have to address that it's okay to seek for help and it's okay to fail. It doesn't mean that whatever you're doing in the first time, it's completely wrong. Maybe there's just some things that you have to tweak in between for it to succeed going forward.
Okay to
Address it then.
reduce your goal. Like it's
Okay.
not shameful to say like, oh, he can't do this or she can't do this right now.
Right.
It's not even, it's okay to even say like, this is not possible for this person ever. Like maybe
Right.
that, but it's okay to say that. It's not
Yes.
okay to just say, oh, fuck it, it's never going to work. But the key is tweaking those goals. And then once we've got this all sorted out, now we can start talking about like, okay, sometimes money is a real big deal. Okay. And so let's talk about like what the money is geared for. Is the money geared for like, okay, I need a place to live. I need some basic like, food and resources right now. Right. So one of the resources I would advocate for is ODSP, Ontario. So basically, this is an Ontario-based program, but the other Canadian provinces have a similar setup where it's geared towards financing, providing financial aid and housing to certain individuals. So that's one aspect of money. Another aspect could be, okay, something that we all need. We need retirement, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to retire at some point. How does that person get enough money to retire on? So then this is another government program where it's like RDSP, a Registered Disability Savings Plan. And this is similar to our conventional
RSPs.
RSPs. It's sort of like a merger between an RSP and an RESP, which is for educational purposes.
That's right.
And basically, this is the government just throwing you free money. Like, to be honest, even if you just opened it and just let it sit there, the government will pitch in money every so often, every year.
How so? Like they just contribute a certain percentage, or?
So it's broken up into two different sections. One is just free money, like literally just having the account open, they will hand you money just for having that account open. And another one is a dollar matching program where if you put up to a certain amount based on your family's finances, then they will match either 3-to-1, 2-to-1, 1-to-1 to your account up to a certain max for that year. So this is something that you can look into, that I've talked about on my blog. And that you can go in and look at in more depth to understand how this works. And then there's other stuff where it's like, okay, we got our basics, we got our retirement, now let's try to figure out something in between. So this is sort of like, I want a training program. I want to, I'm going to work, but I need like certain supplies to make that work. And this is where the passport program comes in. So not to be mistaken for immigration or anything, this is actually just a program where you can get reimbursed for certain things. So like, if I did like a vocational training program for like, for people with for learning disabilities, they can go here, get trained, and then go into the workforce. And then it also helps them sort of get matched up with different work employments. So that is another way. Because some of these programs, like you were saying, they're expensive. They're like, any kind of training program like that can run you up to like a couple $1,000. But if you get passport funding, or if you're approved for that, they will grant you, what is it, about 5,000 per season. So like every 4 months. And that basically you're allowed to use, and you can use it however you see fit. Within like their guidelines. So basically, is it a training program? Is it something that's going to help you move into sort of like employment or to those sort of aspects, right? And then there's just, so like these are different types of financing you can get, but all of this kind of depends on where you are in your journey in life, right? And this is all of this is just specifically for adults that I'm talking about. There's also a whole host of different things for children or people who are seniors. Like that's the thing about all these programs, like not only knowing what you need, but also knowing what you have. So for instance, my brother has a learning disability, which is different than his schizophrenia, which seems similar but isn't. And because of that, he gets access to different programs because he
Mm.
has a dual diagnosis. So,
Ah.
what is it? DSO, Development Services Ontario, is
Mm-hmm.
specific to people who have uh, developmental issues. So,
Mm.
for this, my brother's learning disability is a developmental issue, and
Yeah,
thus it will help him. If he only had schizophrenia, he would not be going to that organization.
I
So
see.
even understanding that, understanding how old
Yeah.
you are, like school wise,
Wow.
as a child going through that, talking to your schools, counselors, there are
Mm.
programs specific to your age group. And as soon as you turn 18, there's a whole different set, and you no longer qualify for things that you were previously getting. So
Mm.
that's another aspect of finding help, is
Mm.
also knowing which help goes to which person.
Yeah. Okay,
So
that's
yeah,
great.
so that's sort of a lot all at once.
Yeah, yeah. But
That's kind of the
it's a
problem.
that's the problem exactly. 'Cause just to even break it down in the first place, like we're just completely clueless. Like where do we go? It's like my big question is like how do we deal with our finance? But like your answer was like wow, because you're gonna have to figure this out and then this out and this out, and then it branches off to all the different things that you can do, right? So it's great that you have different blog posts that you talk about the different programs available, so then our audience can go find the details if they like to, right?
Find multiple organizations that I've linked to as well, like the
Mm.
DSO, ODSP. There's Access Point, and then also finding out how best to get different medical practitioners going,
Yeah,
either talking to your GP and having referrals. There are
yeah,
other assessment programs you can get.
right.
And there's some things that you don't even get access to until you get an
Mm.
assessment that proves,
Yeah,
oh, you have this disability.
yeah,
It's so wild how far down the rabbit hole you have to go to before you get it. And then there's
right,
on top of that, a lot of these are government services. So that means when we have a change of government, oh, passport funding may go away.
oh
Like I remember when
right,
they came when I was first getting approved, when my brother
yeah,
was getting approved, and then they're saying, yeah, you got to do this fast because we're having a change of government, and I don't know if we're gonna have this.
oh yeah, never thought of that. That's
Hey, so
so
like
true.
So like even when you have access to a program, you have to constantly watch like, is this going to survive? Like when we
Mm.
change when we change different types of governments, this is very common going from liberal to conservative or even conservative to liberal. If something is more important for that agenda, then it'll get cut or a new thing
Mm.
could pop up. Like the
Yeah.
RDSP program that showed
Mm-hmm.
up back in I want to say it was back in '08 when that
Mm.
popped up. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
And that just came out of nowhere. And it's not like somebody said, "Oh yeah," it's not like a flyer went out or the government. I don't know how that was actually
Yeah.
um, spread or like given out to the general public. I
Right.
actually found out about it because someone was trying to sell me an MLM scam. Like it was weird, right? Like literally, someone who was trying to get me into a multi-level marketing thing, and then he casually just said, "Oh yeah, I heard about this RDSP thing." I was like, "What?"
What is that? Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what that is, but like at that point, I was like, "Yeah, it's a bit of a scammy." But I went and researched, like, "Holy shit, this is actually a legit thing." The
Nice.
RDSP, not the MLM. That thing was garbage. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But thankfully for him, though, you found out about the RDSP.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, how do you find these things? How do you keep your finger
That's
on
the
it? Like,
thing.
what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
and that is like such a difficult thing to find out,
It
like
is. It
because
is.
nobody's really running around explaining it, like
Nope.
unless you have somebody who's a social worker or who does this for a living
Yeah.
or has a person that they're trying to support. You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of the other thing I wanted to sort of, maybe this is a little bit more of the selfish thing of the blog, is I want to meet other individuals who kind of go
Yes.
through my circumstance, who are
Yes.
dealing with the same things we are, because I'm
Absolutely.
not going to catch it all. I know for
No.
a fact I'm going to miss a lot of shit. And honestly, if I could find other people who are also, oh, hey, did you try this hack, or did you try this thing, did
Mm,
you try that, oh, I found out about this, and then just spread it. Like, this
that's right.
is one thing that I'm okay with going viral.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, yeah. We help each other. Let's talk about some of the maybe some of the stresses and emotions you have to deal with growing up with this whole situation, especially, I don't know, in your household with your specific culture. How has it affect you?
Oh, again,
I know it's another
hard.
loaded question.
I mean, okay. um I guess I can start with sort of like personally for me. Culturally speaking, I think you alluded to this earlier, where it's like
Mm.
the projection of, I know with my parents and a lot of the Asian community, your kids are your bragging point. Basic, basic thing, right? And when one of your children suffers from a physical disability or a mental
Mm.
disability, and it is one of those like, how do we hide this? How do we downplay this? How do we
Mm.
smooth it over so it looks good for everyone else? And that is a very negative way of dealing with it, because the problem is, first, you've cut yourself off from possible help you could be getting
Mm-hmm.
for both you and your child,
Yeah.
right? So that was happening a lot in my family, because we were like, we weren't reaching out. It stops us from asking for help as much,
Yeah.
and especially from friends and family who just by their nature want to help, right? And
Mm.
that's a common thing. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one cultural aspect that
Yeah.
really was an issue for like me and my
Yeah.
family. And another
Yeah.
one, like we talked a little bit earlier, is just language barrier. A lot of
Mm.
people from other countries who immigrate to Canada or North America, you have a doctor, he says a bunch of big words, and then, oh yeah, your child has a learning disability, global academic delay, or he has this schizophrenia. These are big words for
They are.
someone
Yeah.
whose first language is not
Oh.
English,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like even if this was their native tongue, these are big. Like I don't even understand the nuances that go along with this. And like I'm a native speaker,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and back then there wasn't even words for certain things, right? 20
True.
years ago, people would just say he's crazy, he's insane. It was like
Mm.
whatever, just he's touched in the head, and that's the problem, because
Mm.
there wasn't even wording around it to explain the problem,
Yeah.
right? And that just groups a whole bunch of people together who need such a diverse amount of help. So
And that's why it's important for us not to say those words.
yeah, it's to understand the context where it comes from, and then
Mm.
it puts certain people down, it groups amounts of
Yeah.
people together, and nobody, and it sort of just labels people and then puts them away. You know, like
Yeah.
he's crazy, done. Which is
Mm.
it's ridiculous to say the
Mm.
least, right? Like even me, I had to work really hard to understand that I was doing that a lot, right? It's always oh, it's so crazy, it's so nuts, it's like difficult, it's so
Yeah.
difficult to have
Mm-hmm.
that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, just culturally, those are the two big ones that I see that
Mm.
affect this community a lot. Just
Yeah.
the not reaching out for help because
Yes.
you're ashamed. And that's the
That's
thing.
right.
Shame come like if you can't brag about your kid, that is a
That,
shame point. Which is
right.
which is I mean, I don't know what to say about that, right? Like
Yeah.
it took me personally, and I'm just the brother. Like I'll be honest, I
That's
tried to hide it
right.
as well because I learned it from my parents. And they learned
Yeah.
it because
That's
that,
true.
and it's not like anyone's trying to be a bad person. They're just like,
No.
I think this is what we're supposed to do. They're trying,
Yeah.
like the way I see it is, my parents immigrated from a different country, came
Mm-hmm.
here, were kind of okay with English, trying to figure out, trying to get a job, trying to just basically survive. And then you
Yeah.
throw, oh, here's this other layer of complexity. Now what do you do?
Mm.
It's like already so far behind the eight ball,
Mm.
right? And then what to do next, right?
Yeah.
And like let's not talk about like the racism or anything like that, because
Right.
now you're just not sure, like, okay, what do I do? How do I
Yeah.
like there's a certain level of distrust
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and then a certain level of just not understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so culturally there's a lot of things that work against you.
Yeah.
So
And within the family as well, right? Do you find a difference as well because you were born in Canada? And with your parents and their point of view, that might be a conflict as well.
so like, oh yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
let's talk about just who takes care of who, right? So back home it's
Uh-huh.
very common for multi-generational families to live under one roof.
That's right.
It's common to have a child, their parents, and their
Yeah.
grandparents, and even like some cases great grandparents stay in one roof,
Right.
where one person is sort of taking care of like a
Yeah.
bunch of people. And then here it's very common for the child to be like, okay, out you go. That there was no talking of what's happening, what is the
Mm.
game plan, who's doing
Mm.
what, and revising, is this still working, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, like I thought, hey, like I'm just gonna focus on me, make sure I'm not a burden to my parents so they can focus all their attention on my brother, which is sort of
Right.
what I thought being a good son was. Like, I just did not cause a lot of problems as far as I can remember, and like got good grades, went to university, got a job. Like, I tried my very best to not need as any money from them. Like, I
Yeah.
really tried to be like as minimalistic as, yeah. And then, but from their point of view, it's like, okay, we're just going to support me, and like, okay, he's going to go to school, he's going to go do this, he's going to make
Yeah.
money, and then he can take care of us and my brother.
Mm.
And like, I didn't sign up for that. I assumed one thing, they assumed another, and there's
Mm.
none of that talk, because for them it's like, well, that's what culturally we've always had to do, so why not? Why are you changing
Right.
it?
With Western philosophies and things that we've now learned, which is quite different from the East or in Asian cultures, then that's the discrepancy, right? And I think communication in the first place among Asian families is not our forte.
Especially around the men, I gotta say. To be honest,
Mm,
my dad and me, it's hard communicating.
yeah.
It's hard to break that, not language barrier, but social barrier. And just like
Yeah.
a lot of times for us, like celebratory things are not common, but like if something
Mm,
goes sideways or like shit hits the fan, that's when like, okay, how do we help? And in
right.
this case, it's it's weird because we have that breakdown of communication. Nobody's pulling in the same direction, and that's kind of an issue.
Yeah.
So, personally, family-wise, that was
Mm,
another thing that came
mm,
about, which
yeah.
was, how do we get a consistent push from everybody in one direction? You'll have an idea, your parents will have an idea, and then the person that you're trying to provide care to has their own thing that they want, which is true. Like,
Yes.
a lot of times people forget about the person who has the disability, the
That's
person who's
right.
trying to live, because they are their own person.
That's
And
right.
it's really easy to forget that. Like,
It is true.
I consistently forget that. I'm on, like, I try really hard not to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, people who have like learning disabilities or physical disabilities that prevent them from doing the basics
Yeah.
still have something to offer, still
Of
are
course.
very valuable to society, right? Most people don't see it
Ah,
as like, oh, it's like, oh, like, forget him. He can't speak well. He's touched in the head, and that's the problem, right? Like,
yeah.
not just that they have something to offer, they also have their own wants, desires, and I
Mm,
what we push on them as caregivers also has to take that into consideration, and that's
that's
hard.
right. Things according to the standards of what society deem to be average or good or whatever, then we forget that they're a human being as well to have so much value to offer. Then you almost now take them by the hand, step by step, to do everything for them. But sometimes that actually pisses them off, or it makes them feel less respected as a person, and that's in my experience,
Yeah,
particularly.
no, and that is very common. Like, for instance, I was talking to this teacher, and he's sort of a teacher for children with different types of learning disabilities.
Yeah.
And he was just he said something to me that really resonated.
Mm,
So he was talking about this one child. She's autistic, and she started to have daydreams, and she's in her world.
yeah,
And that's the thing, right? They're in their world,
that's right.
doing their thing,
Yeah,
minding their business, and then
yeah.
all of a sudden, us as a teacher, a parent, we barge into their world, pull them out, and say like, "Oh, you have to be in our world." And could you
Yeah.
imagine if somebody came into your home, pulled you outside, and said,
Mm,
"Now you have to be here for a bit"? And it's just like, it seems so invasive and so like
that's true.
jarring. But
Yes.
what we do consistently to people similar to this, like people who have schizophrenia, people who have certain learning disability, autism, like,
Hmm.
they're in their world. And
Yes.
sometimes they just want to be there for a bit. Sometimes it's safer for them to be there, like
Mm,
from their point of view. And how do we say, okay, sometimes you can be in that world, sometimes you need to be here, and how do we make
mm,
that so it's easier for them? Because if we say never go back, never be in that place, and then it's just hard for them. It's
mm.
not going to work. And it is such a weird shift for me. I was like, oh, because I remember my brother did this a lot, where
Yeah.
we start daydreaming, talking to himself, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm. Hmm.
I personally would get mad. I was like, stop doing that. It's like,
Yes. Yes.
stop it. And
Yeah.
then he would like 10 minutes later go back, and like, I realized that was both mean to me and him. Because, for instance, I didn't
Mm,
get what I wanted, he didn't get what he wanted,
mm.
and there was a tension where it's like, hey, how can we give you what you need and ask you to come versus demand you come. It's like, hey, if you come here, how can we make being here okay versus pulling someone, right? And that's a really like subtle nuance, right? So that's what I
Yeah.
mean about like everyone being consistently pushing. It's a really difficult thing to do because like everyone's got their own ideas, everyone's entitled to have their own opinions, and
Yeah.
like especially when it's another person's life, it's not yours. You have to remember that as a caregiver,
Yeah.
you do your best, but it's not your life.
Yeah.
Really hard.
For the analogy, I think it really shines a light on how we should look at the situation, how it would be perceived on their side as well. Because I think just understanding that there is still a human with their own space, with their own perceptions, being in their own world, now it makes sense that we need to respect it too. So I think that was a beautiful illustration of how it works for them. And the question then, it's like, the communication of how we can do that with the person with a disability, but that everyone is different with their own unique sets of challenges, right? Like not only it's a learning disability or whatever disability they have, but it's also their personality that you have to take into effect as well, and how you can communicate effectively with them, combining with the cultural beliefs and the limitations and the environment you live in. It's a very complex, I guess, situation that we have to deal with. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this,
No, I
but
understand. Like that's it. Actually, not knowing where you're going with this is kind of the point. Like this
yeah,
is a very nuanced, multi-layered
yeah,
variable, like tons of variables, and like
mm,
how do you create a system that works for both the caregiver, the person with the disability, and society, and putting that all together
yes,
in a holistic approach? Yeah, that's going to
exactly.
take years. Let's
I
be
know.
honest.
Yeah,
And that is so difficult. And
I
like,
know.
and some programs exist, some programs don't and need to
Yeah.
start existing. And like,
Mm,
that's another side. Like, I'm still working
mm,
on just figuring out what do we have available. And
right.
after that, it's like, okay, here's what we have. Finally, we
Mm.
understand what we have. What are the missing gaps and how can we add to it?
Oh, I love
Right.
that. That's great.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
even know, like, that's kind of what I think after the baseline gets set,
yeah.
where to go next. Like, okay, we don't have any systems in place for, I mean, there's a whole host of things, and I don't know where we're going to go with that. But I think that
Yeah.
would be the next step is to start filling in the gaps.
That's great. Have you found everything that's available in Canada yet, Noah? I think that's going to be a journey in itself.
It's like we said, certain programs are going to drop off, others are going to drop in,
Yeah,
and it'll be constant. I don't think it'll ever be done, but I think it'll
right.
be enough to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And then just talking about just having a spot where all of this exists, how we can have places where like having a walkthrough would be nice. I mean, it's not
Mm,
going to be like step by step, do this, do this, do this. It'll be more like, how do we get the questions
yeah.
linked to certain resources?
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it's going to be. It's like, okay, I need problems with housing. Okay, how do we define housing? How do we
Mm-hmm.
find what are the issues you need face?
Yeah.
And what are organizations that can help you drill down on this?
Mm,
Right?
mm.
Like that's kind of what I want the blog to be. So like
Yeah,
I did
that's
one
amazing.
article that was on housing where it's like, okay, how do you define housing? Okay, does the person live alone? Does the person live with family? Does the person live with roommates? Like what do
Mm,
they need? Do they need constant supervision, once a week supervision,
mm.
every day? Do they need food? Can they do certain activities by themselves? Like defining the housing,
Yeah.
and okay, how much does it cost? How much can we afford? What kind of financial aid can we get for this, putting
Mm-hmm.
that together, then saying, okay, which places can we go? There are not-for-profits, there are actually for-profit ones where you
Yeah.
can pay and they'll take care of you, have a social
Mm-hmm.
worker on site.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's government subsidized housing or government provided housing. And
Yeah.
there you can say like, okay, now how do we get on the list for any of these right now?
Right.
And then
Oh gosh.
figuring that out, once you get on the list, Toronto's really dense. So this
Mm.
being on a wait list, we're talking not months, we're not talking weeks, we're talking years.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
years approaching a decade. Like we're talking 7 to 10 years,
Wow,
right?
really?
Yeah, and that's for Toronto. But if you go outside of Toronto, you're talking maybe Hamilton, some of the other regions, it's a lot
Yeah.
faster. And like
Mm,
thinking about this, oh, maybe I should move out of the city. They're like
right.
weird questions you
Ah.
assume that you need to do.
Right. Oh, that's so great. So you're trying to just basically break it all down into systems and step by steps, depending on the situation. That way people know which direction to go and what steps to take, which would be
Yeah.
a lot easier for them to navigate.
Yeah, flow chart kind of thing is
Mm,
ideally what I would love to get into
that would be
and
great.
like something I would want to build myself.
Yeah.
And then just have that as like, oh, here's my question, here are a couple of options that you have to revise or understand. And then there's also going to be the back check where it's like, okay, great, I got that housing. Is it working? How do I know if it's
Right.
working?
Right.
Do I need something else on top of this? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I got an apartment and it's government subsidized. Great, I have that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it working? It's like, can I cook for myself? Do I need to get Meals on Wheels? Do I need a food delivery service?
Mm,
Do I need like a nurse to come in once a
yeah.
week to check me out? Do I
Yeah. Yeah.
need help? Like so many things, even once you
Mm,
think you're done, you're not quite done. And another thing that's very counterintuitive
mm,
is people think I have to be the first line of defense for my child or for my parent.
right. Yes.
But the problem with that is it should actually, I think, should be the other way. You should be the
Okay.
last line. Because here's
Oh,
the thing. Um, you are one point. You are one failure point, right?
okay.
Because if by a bus, what happens,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you have, okay, we have a government resource that provides
Mm,
government aid consistently.
yes.
I find it very hard for the government to default versus a single person to default, right?
Mm,
It's much more believable to say like, oh, this from the government is probably better to have that first step. Then a
mm-hmm.
second step to have some other organizations and some other people, and then you,
Yeah.
because that way you can fill in gaps where you
Right.
see, oh, there's gaps here, here, here. If
Mm,
anything changes, you can do those tweaks. And
right.
if something drastic happens, then you can step in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're the first line and then something happens to you,
Mm,
it takes months, years to get government systems in place, other organizations. It's
yeah.
not quick. Whereas if you do it the other way, like, oh, this government program comes in, you're going to be far faster than the government will ever be. So
Mm,
having you in reserve to do those changes, to like,
yeah.
oh, there's a holiday, we're not here. It's like, oh, I can jump in. Versus,
Mm,
oh, I have to go to the hospital. How do I get this? Like,
mm,
it's not as quick. So
yeah.
having like that mindset,
Mm-hmm.
so difficult. Thinking like,
Yeah.
oh, do I always have to provide housing? Do I always have to provide that
That's the
financial support?
thing. You think
Right?
it's all you, and that stress, that responsibility is so huge as well.
Yeah, and it's also not manageable sometimes.
That's
Sometimes it's
right.
like, what happens? What happens if you
It's true.
actually, because like if there's one thing you can guarantee, there's gonna be some days where you just can't do it. You get sick,
That's the thing
like
too.
just the flu, just like a
Yeah.
regular. I mean, I got a few months ago. I had the flu. The regular flu just
Mm,
knocked me right on my butt
mm.
for like a couple of days where I couldn't do squat, right? And I don't know how I would have helped anybody in that condition.
No, exactly. You have to take care of yourself first too, right? And it
Hmm.
might even affect your own mental health
Right, and
as
that's the thing.
well. Yeah. And so, is there anything that you do to help yourself with your mental health in these situations? Because,
Oh,
oh,
all right.
stress.
The first thing I gotta say is to make space for yourself. Like you, like let's be honest. The issues that are facing the caregivers and people
Yeah.
with who live with these disabilities are,
Mm.
it sucks. Let's just say it. It's
Oh, I know, I know.
always,
It doesn't feel fair. All right.
yeah,
It's
and
like, yeah,
yeah, it doesn't, and it's not like
and it's
if it's
not. You're right. Let's just admit it. It's not fair.
fair, and to give yourself space to like today, I'm just like this morning, I'm just gonna cry about it for an hour and
Mm,
then let myself feel shitty for an hour to
yeah.
say like, okay, like my parent is just driving me off the wall. I just need a half day to just recoup, and it's
Yeah.
okay. It doesn't make you a
Mm,
bad person. My partner, she was talking about this where she was just talking to on the phone with one of her friends, and she's a mom, and basically my wife just heard the TV in the background, thinking, oh, your daughter's watching TV, and the the mom got so like sad. It's like, oh yeah, I know it's terrible. It's like, come on,
Yeah, you
during
shouldn't feel guilty. Yeah.
like I get it. It's like we're dealing with a pandemic. You just gotta
Yeah.
like take it easy. And like sometimes
Yes.
you just need it. Sometimes you need a little bit of help. Like it's different if
Yes.
you're consistently not paying attention. It's very different in that case. We're like, okay, come on,
Yeah. Well, then,
a
okay.
little bit.
Maybe you should step it up a little. Yeah. But
But if
when,
like you need the break,
yeah,
god
of
damn it,
course.
take the break, take the
Yeah, no, it's
breather.
true. Yeah,
So
you need
making
it.
space for that. And what
Mm,
that means is very different to very different people.
of
Like
course.
maybe it's take a walk. Maybe it's like I need a day off. I need to
Mm,
literally take a day off. For my family, it was very hard to talk them into getting assisted living for my brother. It's like, okay, putting
mm.
him on the list. Because they was like, we can't just send our son out into the world, just let him
Yeah,
out and be
yeah,
like, we're the parents. We should be taking like, yeah, but
yeah.
is that fair to both you and him? The ideal case is for them to live independently, and
That's right. Of
it
course.
feels so wrong, right? Like you're
Yeah. It's
like,
almost like you're abandoning them,
yeah, but it's not.
but
It's
it's
okay to
not.
say like I can't do this. It's okay to say it.
Mm,
It's not okay to say I can't do this. I'm not gonna like that's it. I'm gone. That's a very
yeah.
different story from saying I can't do this. So let me find another way.
Yes.
Let me
I like
find
that.
another way that works for everybody. It's
Yes.
not abandoning to take them to this care center. Make sure that they're taken care of. Make sure to check that, oh, okay, do you have everything? Are you sure? Is there anything you're missing? If there is, let's figure out a way to get it. Like
Yeah.
that is not abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
That is making a system that is sustainable for both the caregiver and the individual. And
Mm,
it's really hard. There's so much guilt and so much shame associated with
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That is something we're gonna have to be okay admitting. Like
Yeah.
who like as just a regular person just trying to survive, it's hard. Let's just be honest,
Enough already. Yeah.
staying alive with a job and not being a burden is hard enough. And then you throw
Yeah.
this layer, like, what do you expect?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so good that you clarify that because if you don't take care of your own mental health and well-being and you're trying to help this other person, even if you're like completely happy, right? And the other person needs so much help and you're just throwing yourself in their situation, enabling them in every single way, then it's like both parties are not happy and both parties are not thriving. Versus if you keep yourself mentally in check, to put in all the systems in place to help yourself and the other person, that is more sustainable. That's why we should hopefully this helps us to stop from feeling guilty of not taking their hand and doing things for them step by step. We don't have to do that. Just like I guess a parent, it's the same thing, right? It's like
Yeah, and it works both ways.
yeah, exactly. And it works both ways.
They want to be happy too. They want to like
Exactly.
no like if you're the caregiver, there's definitely some sense of love and support that
Yeah.
you give them, but they also want to give you back. Like it's true. Nobody wants to be
Mm,
that dick that just sits there and it's like, I want everything. I don't want to do anything. And the person that's
yeah.
taking care of me, I don't care about them. Like,
Yeah.
not what's happening. It's
That's
not,
right.
well, I don't want to say it's not happening. I find that really hard to believe because
That's right.
they want just to know that they're safe, they're loved,
Yeah.
and they also want to be able to do the same thing for you.
Yeah, that's so true. Sometimes we assume from one side, well, at least for me, as the caregiver, it's like, well, I feel unfair. I feel resentment. Why am I doing all this to help you? Meanwhile, you not do nothing, but it's like you're just there, right? And I feel like there's more burden and stress on the person that's taking care of the person with the disability. But then on the other side, it's true, they don't want to feel like they need help from other people either. They're trying their best. So this guilt tripping each other, it doesn't help. And so it's important that we put the systems in place so everyone is happy as much as possible.
Yeah. And then the other thing is just doing the basics, right? We're
Yeah.
talking eating well, sleeping well, exercise, connecting with others that like if you're a caregiver and you only interact with one person, the person you're helping, then that's going to be pretty unhealthy. And the same thing
Yeah.
for people who suffer or who live with different types of disabilities.
Mm,
If they're only interacting with the caregiver, there's a dynamic, right? Like if you're always receiving care
yeah.
and someone's always giving care, that's not a healthy way to live. If that's
That's right.
always it, like
It's
some,
one-sided.
yeah, like having friends, having that equal status to like
Mm-hmm.
talk to somebody else, to like have fun with somebody else, to just,
Yeah.
just be like, you know what, I don't need anything from you. We're just having fun here.
Yeah. That's
Necessary,
the
right?
best dynamic. Yeah.
I mean, so that's another thing that needs to be
Mm.
done. And also just accepting days we're gonna suck, right? So
Yeah.
make space for yourself, connect, do all the basics, and then just, you know what, some days are gonna suck. Just accept that is going to happen. It is statistically impossible not to have a sucky day.
That's right. That's just human life anyways, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
some people don't realize that you're
Mm.
supposed to feel
That's right.
terrible. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, like if you're caring for someone and you really love that person and they're
Mm.
struggling, how are you not going to feel bad about it?
Mm.
Like if my brother is struggling and he's upset and he just can't get something right and it's bothering him, you've
Mm-hmm.
got to be kind of sociopathic not to feel like bad about it.
Mm. Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
supposed to, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're not feeling guilty, like these are common emotions that happen to everyone, and everyone
Yeah.
needs to accept that it's going to happen and then have a
Mm-hmm.
plan for how to deal with that.
Yes, I like that. And just to wrap this up, what are some things that are very taboo to say or that you wish that people would know about uh, being the caregiver with a disability or just the person that has a disability? Like what are the things that we should know, but most people don't know?
Uh, oof. Okay. A couple of things come to mind. Number one is don't call us brave. Like that's just we're living our lives. It's just a weird thing to say. I don't understand where that came from. It's like, oh, you're
Mm,
so brave to do this. Like, what the hell? I'm taking care of somebody, or I'm in a wheelchair. I'm not brave. I'm just happen to not be able to walk. Like it's a
mm,
little. I don't
I
know what the
see.
word is, but it's like it's weird, and it's
Mm,
not. It doesn't make any sense, and it kind of feels a little demeaning. It's like this is my regular
mm,
life. My regular life is brave to you. Like it's
mm,
weird. And the other
right.
thing is, for instance, like when my brother goes outside with me or a parent, a lot of times when people need something from him,
Yeah.
they'll talk to me directly. So like
Right.
we'll go to the doctor's office or we'll go for like a haircut or something, and the person will talk to me. It's like, oh, what does he want?
Yeah.
There's no there's no talking to my brother, for instance,
Mm,
because it's like, oh, he doesn't understand. I'll talk to the other person who
right.
probably understands, which is terrible when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
first off, it doesn't give them a chance to sort of interact with somebody else, and
Mm-hmm.
like the first thing is like if you need to talk to someone, make sure that like don't ignore them in the conversation. Even if they suffer from uh, physical and mental disability, they are their own person again.
Yes.
So just always talking to the caregiver and completely ignoring them is just
Mm-hmm.
disrespectful.
Disrespectful,
It,
yeah.
it also doesn't help because they'll probably know a little bit more. I mean, the first, I understand that there are some times where you need the interpreter. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's also good to split your focus and be like, okay, it's like, hello, how are you doing? And then you can talk to them, say,
Yeah.
would you like this? And if you don't understand, try
Mm.
different ways a little bit. But don't
Right.
immediately just write them off. Like, I'm not going to talk to this person, I'm going to talk to the
Mm.
caregiver. So that's
Yeah.
another thing that I would say is sort of, I won't say taboo, but it's a common misconception.
Mm. Great. Thank you so much for being on the show. Um, so besides your blog called ChallengetheChallenge.com, where else can the audience find you if they want to contact you?
For now, that's kind of where I'm starting off
Yeah.
as. Like, blog
Mm.
is still relatively in its infancy, so
Mm.
comment on there. You
Yeah.
can email directly via the blog as well if you have specific questions or if you just want to reach out and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Honestly, it helps me as much as I hope it helps everybody else. So
Yeah.
feel free to connect with me via the blog. That's usually the best way to do it.
That's great. Thank you so much again for sharing all your insights and information and being like the person that it's putting the resource out there, which will help everybody. Thank you so much for watching Unconventional Asians. If you like this type of content, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Share with us in the comments box below what type of unconventional topics you would like us to cover. Make sure you also click that subscribe button for more videos like this. Until next time, dare to be authentic. Join our community at Unconventional Asians on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to hear more.